welcome to another kitchen table clay. This is just a really quick one where I'm going to show you how to make a very simple wallflower idea. It's just a piece that you can hang on your wall that just looks really lovely, and you can change them and make them into all different kinds of flowers as far as your imagination can take you. So I hope you have a lot of fun with this one. Okay, for this one I have done something to prepare. I've just made a background by rolling out, marking a circle and then cutting most of the circle away with a little bit on the top here. This is going to be our background for our flower, and we're just going to trim a little hole here that will act as a hanger. If you don't want to do this, you can just cut a big circle out, and then once it's all fired and finished, you can either use epoxy glue or epoxy putty to stick a D-ring or some other hanging mechanism on the back of it. Epoxy putty works really well. I've done that before. But otherwise we're just going to use this as our backing and pop a little hole in the top there out using a straw or something along those lines. For now we're going to roll out some clay. We want this quite thin, so we're going to roll, again, as I've said on previous videos, one side, turn it over, roll the other side. Now this is clay I've used before and wedged up to try and get the air out of it, so I do need to watch for air bubbles. We've got one showing up just there, so I'm just going to lift the clay off the surface, open up the bubble, fill it with a bit of slip, or a lot of slip in this case, and fill it back in again, and then carry on re-rolling. Changing directions to try and keep it fairly even in thickness. And I flip it over because as we roll, the fabric is taking moisture out from the clay, and I don't want one side to get drier than the other, as well as the fact that as you roll, the rolling pin compresses one side and stretches the other, and if you keep flipping it tends to even it out a bit, which helps us with getting less cracking in the clay when we're working with the slabs. Let's see, I want this really quite thin. I think we're getting as much as I can risk at the moment. There we go. Okay. Now, you can see this is really quite thin, and that's what we want. It does mean, however, that we need to work fairly quickly because it will dry out quicker because it's thinner. Now, I don't have my smaller cutters from the studio, so I'm going to see how this jar does for the smaller circles, and then I've got an ordinary cookie cutter that I'm going to use for slightly larger circles. So let's see how we go. This might not work very well, because it could be very tricky to get out, which is what I was afraid of. That might well work. So if I do 5 of those, use this as our base. I'm just going to put some score marks around the outside edge where the first set of petals are going to go. And then we're going to do the big petals first. And what we're going to do, although I did this quite thin, you can see it still looks a bit thick for a petal, so I'm just going to very gently go around and pinch the edge. This also gives it some movement in the clay that looks a bit more like a natural petal. And gently smooth. Okay. And we need to do this for all 5 of these large circles. Once you've done all 5 of the big petals, we just pop some slip on where we've scored on the back base plate. Be quite generous with this. We're going to be adding lots onto it. And then pop your petals on, shaping them a bit like petals. And then we're going to do the same thing with the smaller circles. Score again. Slip. And then we're going to place these ones so that they go over the joins. the larger petals so that they don't line up exactly. The only thing left to do now is the center of the flower. Now you can really play with this and do all sorts of different textures. I'll say the one that I find the simplest is a whole lot of little balls. You can just do one big piece and put dots in it for texture. You could make little stamens, you can do all sorts. Just remember, if clay is very thin, quite delicate, and you don't want things snapping off on you. Here we go, and that's a finished wallflower. Okay, so I hope you really enjoyed that. This is a really simple version, obviously with circular petals. You could try petals that are teardrop shapes, long petals, any kind of shapes you wanted, and obviously with the center you can do whatever textures and different shapes and things as well that you'd like. You can, if you leave the clay a little bit thicker, you can get a bit more of a ruffle going on the edges as well, if you pinch really strongly. You need good clay for this, that can handle being pinched that thinly, but it's worth a try. See whether your clay can do it. Most will, just you need to be gentle with it and don't let it get too dry, otherwise it will just crack. Okay, so nice, simple, easy project. They look great when they're hung up on the wall, especially if you get a whole group of them going on. They're fabulous, so I hope you enjoy it. Have fun, and I'd love to see what you come up with. Okay, bye for now.